Hello, everyone, and welcome. Be getting started here in just a moment. I want to allow everyone to get logged in and situated and ready to go. Looks like we're going to have a big group today, so that's pretty exciting. While we're waiting to jump in, please go ahead and add in the chat where you're joining us from. And if you want to, a little bit about yourself, what your experience is with Mylio, that'll be awesome to learn. And I'm coming to you from California, somewhat overcast San Diego area. And I'm also joined today by Lori Rubin and JC Figueroa. And we're all in different places, but looking forward to sharing some information with you about printing and preserving memories. So thank you to everyone who's here. We'll get started here just in a moment. Hopefully everybody can hear me. Perfect. I'm seeing some comments coming in. Looks like we've got a worldwide audience. That's amazing. All right. And Mary, don't worry about having a microphone. This is a webinar, so not as interactive as some of our other sessions, but the chat is open. We have the Q&A pod, so all of that is available to you. All right. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we'll go ahead and get started. So for those of you who are here in a timely fashion, I don't want to keep you guys hanging, and we'll go ahead and jump into today's topic. Go ahead and move some stuff around here on my screen so I can see everything. I'm gonna go ahead and pull up the chat so I can see that as well. I know JC and Lori are going to be keeping an eye on that as well. So thank you again for being here, and let's go ahead and get started. Today we're going to be talking about preserving family history through print, and this is a partner webinar with Mylio Photos and Printique. Now, unfortunately, our counterpart from Printique couldn't be here today, so you're going to have to just take it through here with me and Lori and JC. We'll do our best to present all of this to you and give you all of the tools you need to take your pictures for family history, and if you want, turn them into beautiful, tangible keepsakes and memorabilia. So let's go ahead and dive in. My name is Angela Andrieux, and I'm a Mylio Photos product evangelist. What that means is I help people be successful with the software. I teach how to use it. If you have been around for a while with Mylio, you've probably seen me at a lot of our live events in our community and helping people get things done with Mylio. I'm also a fine art photographer. I love capturing cityscapes, landscapes, travel, and of course, my family. I'm a photo educator and my family's memory keeper. So I have been tasked with the privilege of gathering up all those scanned photos and getting them scanned in and making sure that all of those memories are preserved. So I'm sure that's something a lot of you guys can relate to, and that's what we're going to be talking a bit about today. Before we jump in, a little bit of housekeeping. This session is being recorded, and it will be posted within 1 to 2 business days at community.mylio.com. There is an events replay section there in the community, and that's where we will be posting this recording. If you have questions, we do request that you use the Q&A pod. Down at the bottom of your Zoom screen, you'll see a Q&A module. It's separate from the chat. The chat is great for commenting and general, banter with different attendees. But if you have a specific question that you would like me to answer, please make sure you put that into the Q&A, and we will be able to track that and make sure you get an answer. We do also have some special offers for you today. If you're new to Mylio Photos and you'd like to take advantage of getting a Mylio Photo subscription, we are offering 20% off through October 1st for new individual and family plans. You just need to enter new Mylio 20 at checkout. And for Printique, we're going to have some giveaways today. We've got 3 $50 gift cards that we're going to space out and give out throughout the presentation. And you must be online and present to win. So if you have to jump off, unfortunately, you lose your chance to get a gift card. And if you don't get a gift card or you want to spend more than 50 bucks, there's also a 20% off site-wide option with using Mylio 20 at checkout, and that's good through the end of September. We'll have these up again on the screen at the end in case you missed them. All right, so what we're going to do today is talk about why digital and print are both important. This process is starting from taking old photos, old physical prints, and we digitize them, and then why we might want to take those and reprint them. Some people might think that's a bit redundant, but I think the tangible and emotional benefit of that is really important. We're going to talk about that a little bit. We'll go into some best practices for getting high quality scans of your images. I'll share with you some of the equipment that I use, some of the techniques that I use in digitizing my family's memories. and we'll talk about some basic photo restoration techniques. Mylio Photos has some basic editing tools inside the application that are great for this purpose, and I'll also mention a few of the other third-party apps that I use to make my photos look great. We'll discuss a little bit of organization with Mylio Photos, the importance of metadata, and basically gathering that story and all of that important information about those historical photos so that information is preserved and can be passed on to the next generation. And then finally, we'll talk about choosing some print products. I'll show you how to send pictures directly from Mylio Photos to Printique, and we'll do a little bit of exploration on what you might want to do with some of those historical photos. So the first thing I want to discuss is why print and digital. Digital, when we take our family's photos, this is backing it up. This is taking that possibly degrading, falling apart, scratched, fingerprinted, dusty image that might be fading and losing its details and making a copy of that that is digital and can be backed up. When we back things up, we have more than one copy of them, and that makes sure that we're able to preserve that for the long term. But when you do that, you lose that tangible nature. So if for some reason that image that you have, that original print, is falling apart and is degrading, maybe you want to have another tangible reminder of that because there's something very, I'm trying to think of the right word to use, just very necessary that you can touch and feel the emotion in those types of things. By taking those images, doing a little bit of photo restoration, and then reprinting it, you can bring that stuff back to life. And together they keep your family story safe and seen. Digital, backing it up, is that safety measure. You want to make sure that you can preserve this, and if something happens, you have that digital copy. The print is that tangible emotional connection. So when print and digital works together, then nothing gets lost. Most of us have scattered photos. We've got our digital images, prints. You might have slides, old film, you've got albums. Those old prints, they can fade or get lost. And on the digital side, they can actually get buried in your file system or deleted. Mylio and Printique help bring everything together so you can solve both of those problems. So digital gives you a flexible, searchable, backed up copy. It's great for security, restoration, and editing, and makes your stuff easy to access. It's really remarkable to me that I can be out in town visiting family across the country, wherever I can pull up my phone or my iPad, pull up those family history pictures, I can search for things and show them to people right on the spot. Digital is amazing for stuff like that. Prints are when somebody comes to your home and you want to hand them a family album or you have pictures up on the wall. Those are those tangible, emotional, and display-worthy things. And printing those restored images gives them new life and permanence. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit first about scanning. And there's a lot of information here, but what you're going to want to do is, in a general sense, you're going to sort by family line, time period, or event. You're going to take all of those images that you have, get them into one space, and start making an order. If you have things that are duplicates or really low quality or things that you just, don't think need to necessarily be preserved, go ahead and set those aside. You don't necessarily need to scan everything. And then take some notes. Have a notepad handy and note the original order of the things, especially if you're taking apart albums, and make some notes, especially if in those albums that you're taking apart, there might be handwritten notes in there of where something was taken, what date it was, who was in that picture. And that might be really important context that you want to record later. So make sure you have a list to go along with things as you're scanning. One of the things that I like to do with my images is if I'm taking apart and scanning images out of an old photo album, is to take pictures with my phone of each page of the album before I take it apart. I'm not sure if this is really like absolutely necessary for everybody, but for me, if for some reason I want to put that album back together, or I want to see what notes were associated with which pictures or the order that they were in, I can just go back to my phone, pull that up, and see what pictures were grouped together in the original format that my grandmother or my great aunt or whoever gave these pictures to me, how they had them together. And again, that's important context to tell those stories. So that's just something I do is I go through before I take the album apart and just with my phone, snap a picture of each page. I'm not too worried about perfect lighting or making sure it's perfectly in focus, other than you do want to make sure text is legible and readable. So these aren't necessarily archival things. These are just for my reference. The next thing you want to do is think about how to scan these things in. And there's several different ways you can go about this. There is the do-it-yourself route, which is mostly what I'm going to talk about today, but a lot of this can also be outsourced. And I do recommend, especially if you have film, slides, home movies, things like that, to consider outsourcing them. A lot of the commercially available things are going to digitize those are going to either be very expensive, or the ones that you can get for a consumer are going to be pretty low quality. There's kind of a balance to be had, but if you are of the mind to do it yourself, scanning actual printed pictures is doable for most people. So if you choose to scan yourself, I recommend setting your scanner, your scanning software, to a resolution of at least 600 dots per inch. This is going to give you more information to work with. And if you want to blow that picture up and print it a little bit larger than the original, this is what's going to give you that possibility. It's also a really good size for archival. And again, just making sure that information is preserved at the highest quality. You also want to think about the file type that you're going to save with that scan. Personally, I almost always will do a TIFF. A TIFF is a great archival file, but they are large. They take up more hard drive space, but they are lossless. Whereas with a JPEG, they're smaller, they're easier to share, but they use lossy compression, meaning that every time you open and close that file and make changes to it, you're actually losing little tiny bits of data. And over the course of 10, 20, 30 years, you can actually seriously degrade the quality of that file. You're not going to have that issue with a TIFF. So keep that in mind. You can always convert a TIFF later on to a JPEG for sharing, for easily putting in a text message or something else. But for archiving, TIFF is the best. I also recommend, if possible, to scan the backs of photos if they're labeled. There's so much important information that a lot of people, especially previous generations, would write on the back of pictures. It could be the name of who was there, where it was taken, the ages of the kids, all sorts of stuff. I found some really great and interesting and sometimes funny notes on the backs of pictures. So make sure you capture that information too. Excuse me. So as far as specific equipment goes, I highly recommend the Epson Fast Photo 680. This is a sheet fed scanner. You can see a picture of it there on the screen, and you can load up to 30 pictures at a time into that sheet feeder, and it pulls them through and scans them at high resolutions. You can do that 600 dpi scan. You can get the TIFFs, and it works for up to pictures up to an 8 by 10. Now, using this, you want to make sure those pictures are in good condition. They're not terribly fragile. They don't have adhesive on the backs, because that's going to impact their ability to pull through, and you certainly don't want to damage the next picture in the stack. Um, but if you have a lot of images that are the same size, this is a really great way to get that done quickly and efficiently. Also, it scans the backs of your images, which I think is really cool. So you can, in the software, set a threshold and say, how much information here do I want to try to capture on the back of the images? Do I want to always just take a picture of the back even if there's nothing there? Or do I want to use its technology to scan and see if there is any text there? And if there is, to go ahead and capture that picture. So I think that's a really cool feature. And again, it just helps preserve those details and those stories. Um, One thing I will say about this machine is, if you're going to be using it heavily, keep in mind to check your pictures every so often. The rollers in this machine do tend to get dirty and can start to leave little streaks on your pictures. So just make sure you have your instructions, look at the instruction manual, it'll tell you how to clean it, but keep an eye on that as you're going through this process. Overall, I'd say it's an amazing piece of equipment, and I'm really, really fortunate to have one. The other thing that I use is my flatbed scanner. Now, there are some really nice flatbed scanners out there that are just for this purpose. If you have the budget to do so, absolutely get one. My office, I don't have a whole lot of space to put yet another piece of equipment, so I use what I have. And my all-in-one HP is a great choice for this. I can still set it to a 600 DPI, so I can get a high resolution TIFF out of it. And it works really well for anything that's a little bit more fragile. If it's something that's thicker, if it's a document, That's the kind of stuff I'll go ahead and do on my flatbed scanner. So there's going to be certain things that aren't going to fit through the fast photo for the sheet feeder. That's where a flatbed comes in really handy. And some of the flatbeds also have brackets that you can use for film and slides and things like that too. So it might be a good idea, depending on the scope of your project, to invest in something like the Epson Perfection V600. It's a really solid choice if you want a standalone scanner. But like I said, in this case, I tend to use what I have, and my all-in-one, and this is my HP has been around for a while. I've had it for, oh goodness, probably close to 10 years now. So that's a pretty long life for a printer. So I didn't even realize it was that old. But you use what you have and it works. People do ask me often about scanning using their phone. If that is all you have, go for it. Especially if you are visiting a family member and you don't have access to your own equipment, take the picture, preserve it in any way that you can. Now, I will say, most phones, they do have pretty good sensors for this. And as long as you have a stable platform to shoot from, you don't have movement for blur, and you have good control of the light, so you're not having a glare on the picture, those can be perfectly respectable scans. I would caution though that a lot of phones will save as a JPEG, will lose some information, and may not represent the color and the details as accurately as a scanner would. So keep that in mind. If you're going to use a phone to scan, I really like the app PhotoMine. They're not affiliated with us, it's just something I like. So check them out. And if you are going to go that route, it is worth getting their subscription because you do get access to higher quality files. So as far as using different types of equipment, hopefully that gives you some stuff to think about. If obtaining all of this equipment is more than you want to consider and an investment you're not really interested in doing, that's when I would really highly recommend outsourcing. And for outsourcing, there are professional photo managers out there who can help you organize these things and get these projects put together, digitize them. Certainly, there are larger companies you can box everything up to and ship them off, but I would recommend trying to find somebody local. When it comes to handling my family's precious keepsakes, I would much rather physically hand something off to somebody who's in my local area than boxing them and sending them through the mail. That's just a little recommendation there. All right, so with that, let's go ahead and jump into our first giveaway and see if we have any questions that we need to tackle before we go further.
Okay, first giveaway is congratulations to Molly Malkus, Malkus. Molly, if you could send me your email through the webinar chat directly to me, we'll reach out to Printique and they'll get you that gift certificate. Congratulations.
Congratulations, Molly. And Lori and JC, are there any questions that I need to tackle before we move on?
Not at this time. I think we're good.
All right, well, let's keep going. So I know most of you here probably are familiar with Mylio Photos, and that's how you found this webinar. But we
And
might have a few
Angela,
people. Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Angela. There is a question that did come up, and I thought it was a good one to answer live.
Okay.
Which is there a difference between JPEG and JPG formats? I'm not sure if you want to address it or you want me to answer it, but it's something that people often get confused about.
Yeah, so there's no difference, is there, JC? Not that I know of.
There's no difference. It's just
Yeah.
the different operating systems putting a different extension at the end of the file, but the actual format and compression within the photos is the same.
Perfect. Excellent. Thank you for addressing that. All right. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Mylio Photos, I do want to give you a little overview of what our software is. And essentially, it's an application that helps you organize your lifetime of memories. And it turns your devices into a system for managing your photos. And this is private to you. You get to keep control of all of your information. And it works on Mac, Windows, iOS, and Android. The thing that's really cool here is that your devices talk directly to each other, and the cloud is optional. A lot of other systems force you to put everything up in the cloud. It can be cost prohibitive, and you lose some degree of control of your stuff. Mylio lets you retain control of your images, and your devices talk directly to each other and still give you access to all of your stuff from all of your devices. So a little bit you might want to know about this is it can handle really large libraries or really small ones if that's what you have. It has amazing facial recognition, text recognition. and will catalog your GPS and camera data for you. All of that is searchable in Mylio Photos. It has some basic editing tools that you can make use of, and you get full access to your library without needing an internet connection or cloud data. It also helps you protect your photos from device failure or loss because you have the ability to create what we call a vault, which is essentially an external hard drive that you say, this holds all of my information, and you can have as many vault devices as you like and automatically create backups. So if one hard drive dies, you have another hard drive there with everything that's important to you. So that's a little bit about Mylio Photos. If you'd like to learn more, please go to mylio.com or put your questions into the Q&A. Lori and JC are great resources if you have questions and would like to learn more about Mylio. So let's go
Hey,
into next.
Angela, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, before you move to the next session, there's another question that I started to type an answer to, but it's a very difficult question to answer. So I think you and I should tackle it
Okay.
together. The question is it better overall, considering the cost of equipment and or outsourcing and the time necessary to scan prints which may be decades old or negatives when available? And it's again a complicated answer. The easy answer is if you have the negative and you have the right equipment to scan the negative and you have the time to scan the negative, because it's often more time consuming to scan a negative, scan the negative. The results are going to be better overall in the majority of cases.
Yep.
But getting a scanner that can do a good negative scan at a reasonable price is challenging. Either you're giving up quality because it's something that does a quick, easy job, and you compromise in the quality of the scan, or you're giving up time. I use a flatbed scanner that has the ability to scan negatives, and it produces great results, but it is very time consuming. Um, but in the majority of cases, negatives are going to produce a better job than scanning printed photo, particularly that print photo is very old because it would have a lot of degradation and color loss, etc. Angela, anything you would add to that?
No, that's pretty much how I would answer that. If you have the negatives and you have the resources to have those scanned, I would go for the negatives, especially for, it's something stuff that's really precious that you want to potentially make bigger and you want to preserve it its best possible quality. But
Yeah,
as JC said, there's trade-offs, and preserving, if you don't have the resources to do the film negatives, it's okay to just preserve the prints.
yeah. Do what you can as soon as you can. It's better to have something that in digital form than nothing. And Andrew added a comment on the chat, uh, mentioning that he did a project where he captured his negatives using a mirrorless camera, which does work really well. And once you have a setup that allows you to mount your camera and have the correct lighting in place, it can produce beautiful results. And Mylio will convert that negative to a positive image with one button. So that is a good option. Absolutely use a mirrorless camera with a high resolution sensor on it. But again, it is time consuming. All right,
Yeah,
I'll
and
shut
getting a
up
high
now.
resolution, no, you're good. High resolution cameras are expensive. If you already happen to have one, absolutely make use of that. And that goes for any kind of camera scanning as well. If you have the ability to create a setup to where you can mount your camera, shoot straight down, have the lighting set up to camera scan your prints, that's a great option too. There's lots of different ways to get it done, but that is, if you don't already have the equipment, can be kind of cost prohibitive. But if you're already a photographer and you have it, make use. All right. So whether you're using Mylio Photos or another application, metadata is the information that tells the story of those images. And what you want to do is gather and preserve as much of that information with your photos as possible so that that context and that story travels with that picture and can be handed off to the next generation. Because if you get handed a stack of photos or a drive full of photos and you look at these pictures and you have no connection to them, meaning you don't know who they are, you don't know when they were taken, there's no reason that you're going to be compelled to look at them, let alone preserve and back them up for generations. The part here that's important is making sure as much of that information that you can gather as possible is saved, because that's what's going to create that connection and that story for you and for the next generation. So Mylio Photos is one of the few options out there that really puts forward using industry standard XMP files and following the family history metadata working group standards for standardized metadata. Now, not every program is going to make use of that, but we try to make it as industry-wide as possible and as accessible as possible. So what happens with Mylio Photos is when you change a date in Mylio or you add location information, you add a face tag, those are saved to a sidecar XMP file that sits in the file system next to your image. This means that the process is non-destructive, so it's not changing or altering your original file in any way, and that information sits next to it and is preserved, and many different applications can open up that file, see the XMP, and read all of that same information. So it means that your metadata is accessible and transferable, even if you move your files to other software in the future. So this helps preserve those key details. With Mylio, it also improves discoverability and searchability. One of the things I love about Mylio is that when you feed media into the application, it does what we call dynamic indexing, and it goes through and it catalogs all of this information about your image, including what's already embedded into the metadata in the file. It looks at the image and it does facial recognition. It does optical character recognition, meaning it reads text in files, and it will take all of this information and it makes it into a searchable index. So being able to find pictures when you need them is huge. Mylio is also standardized for genealogy and family history metadata working group, which I already mentioned. It has integration with Family Search. So if you're a Family Search user, you can download information from Family Search and you can easily send media to Family Search memories. Once you've had all this information put together, you can send that picture and it becomes part of that permanent archive. Just one thing to note about that, it doesn't automatically send anything to Family Search. You choose and say, I want to send this picture, and you send that picture. Nothing is automatically sent anywhere else. Again, you retain full control of your stuff, and it helps future-proof your collection. All right, so what details should you preserve? The first thing I typically go through when I scan a new batch of images is I try to address the dates. If possible, I'll put in a full date, year, month, day, or with Mylio Photos, you can use what we call fuzzy dates. These are non-specific dates that can be a decade, they can be a season, they could be a specific month in a year. So it's up to you how much detail you have, what you embed. And then we also have an option to mark things as undated. And this becomes kind of like a to-do list for things that you need to research later. Mark them as undated. And that way, when you're looking at the calendar view in Mylio, those things end up in their own little collection and aren't necessarily showing up on the day that you scan them. The next step is to add some of that descriptive information. If you have notes on the page in the album or on the back of the picture, add that to your title and your caption. I also like to add keywords. This is probably one of those lower priority things. I don't do it on everything, but that's a great place to put in family names, locations, event types, weddings, birthdays, family reunion, things like that. Whatever you think you might use in the future to search for this picture, go ahead and jot that down as a keyword. And that, again, is searchable later on. I also love doing face tagging in Mylio Photos. So anytime you bring in new pictures to Mylio, it scans for recognizable faces. And then you go through, it gives you a list, again, of all of those untagged faces, and you can say, oh, this grouping of people, that's all Uncle Jim. Those are all Aunt Susie. And you can go ahead and add those names, and it adds that to the metadata. And again, that information travels with those pictures to keep that organized and keep that connection for your family available for the future. You can also add location information directly to the geotagging area. So if you know a specific location, you can even put in an address. You can drag it onto the map, and you can add location information for each picture. Now, for our modern pictures that we're taking, those are typically put in there by our cell phones. Those have that GPS information automatically put in there. But for our historical pictures, or even pictures taken with a standalone camera, we have to typically manually add that so it shows up in Mylio. Kind of just a final thought here. As you're importing things, it can be helpful to use clear and consistent naming. Your file names, your folder names, again, those are all searchable inside of Mylio Photos. So just to give you kind of an overview here of the different ways that you can add this information, we're going to kind of go quickly through this because we're already a half an hour into this presentation, and I don't want to take too much time on this. But I mentioned that for digital photos, your dates are automatically captured. So when you click the shutter on your modern camera or on your smartphone, dates are automatically recorded. When you scan pictures, those dates are going to show the date that it was scanned. So that's why you're going to want to, for these historical images, you're going to want to adjust those for those fuzzy dates or mark them as undated. And again, this just helps ensures that they are searchable and organized for the future. Tagging people. This helps identify people across generations, which I think is super important. There's nothing worse than getting a box of photos and going, I know I'm supposed to feel something about this box of photos, but there's no context here. I don't know who they are and why I should care. But if you turn it over and you look at the back of the picture and go, oh my gosh, that's my grandma when she was a little girl, then suddenly you have a tangible connection to that image. And so knowing who's in the picture is super important. Mylio makes this really easy. It takes all of those untagged faces, puts them into an untagged category in what we call the people view. And you can go in there and you can start tagging individual faces. We also have a batch tagging view, so it takes similar faces, groups them together, and you can name people very quickly. To me, it's almost like a game, and it's a lot of fun to do. I love finding pictures of people in my library. Talking a little bit here about location. Again, that's automatically captured for most smartphones and some cameras that have GPS info. You will need to manually add it or edit that information for everything else. You can also batch add locations so you can select multiple photos. So if you have a group of images that you know were all captured in the same place, you can do the information for that all at once. You can just click on those, drag them onto the map, and batch that information. And it just helps, again, with that context, helps keep track of where family events take place, and it makes it more searchable. Other descriptive info that you might want to add in your title or caption. Short, meaningful titles help summarize the photo. For example, Grandparents' Wedding Day, 1952. Your caption and description helps tell the story. So if you have other context to add to that, I would put that into the caption and description field. That just helps future generations understand the significance of the photo and if there was something else more going on around that time. Because sometimes the picture has its own story and you look at it and that's all you see, but there might have been other things going on around that. And if you have that information, record it if possible. I briefly mentioned keywords that helps make searching easy, and use keywords that are how your mind works. So the keywords that I would add may not be the keywords that you add. Think about how you would want to search for this picture in the future and make sure that those words are in there as keywords. That's going to make your life a lot easier. AI is a wonderful thing, and Mylio has AI smart tags, which looks for objects and images, but what the AI sees might not be the way that your mind thinks. So kind of give that a thought and add some of those things as keywords. Some best practices to consider with metadata. With pictures, you want to use the capture date and then for documents, because Mylio can also handle documents, let's say like birth and death records, marriage certificates, census documents, things like that. You can add all of that into your Mylio Photos library. I tend to use the record creation date. So if that document has a date, that's the date I use for that document. And then the picture, it's obviously the capture date, as close as we can get it. With names, I like to standardize it with the first, middle, and last. You can see here my example with my own name in Mylio. I use in the first name field, my first and middle name. And then in the last name field, my maiden name, and then my married name in parentheses. If somebody has multiple marriages, I put them sequentially in parentheses after their birth name. And that for me is a really good standard way of doing it. However you choose to format it in your library, be consistent. If somebody has a nickname, I could, in this instance for myself, I could put Angie. Very few people call me that, like pretty much just people from when I was little. But I could put that here in quotes after Angela Louise. I could put that in there with Angie. If you have somebody who has a suffix, again, I would add that in the last name field after the name that they have there. All right, I think it's time for another giveaway.
Okay, I'm just checking to see if that person is still with us, and it looks like they are. Sam W. I'm sorry, Sam Y. Is it Y-E-A? Yes, Y-E-S-H. Go ahead and put your email in, privately send that to me in webinar chat, and we'll go ahead and get that gift card out to you from Printique. Congratulations.
Congratulations. Are there any other questions that we should cover before we go any further?
There was a question about heritage, my heritage, and working with them in the future. I did mention about familysearch.org, but if anybody's wondering, yeah, go ahead,
So,
Angela.
no, it's fine. We do not have a partnership with MyHeritage at this time. We're always open to looking at those in the future, but we don't have any immediate plans for an integration at this time. If you're using one of these other services for working with your family history, organizing in Mylio does not preclude you using that service. It might not be like a direct integration to send from Mylio directly to that platform, but you can always export files and then upload them to that platform. So it's another little step, but it is still very doable and very accessible. So don't feel like just because we don't have a direct integration that it won't work with your platform, because it probably will. There just might be a step or two in there. So the best way, if you have questions on how to do that, is go into the Mylio community at community.mylio.com. You can reach me there. Lori and JC hang out there every now and again as well. You can ask questions, and we'll do our best to help you figure out a workflow to make that possible for you.
Great.
Let's see here.
Um,
I do see. Go ahead.
I was going to say there's a couple of questions on the Q&A that we should address live.
Okay, let's do it.
So the first one is, are there options available on a good scan? Are the options available on a good scanner enough for editing all photos? And again, this is one of those questions that the answer is yes, mostly. Uh, it really depends on the condition of that old photo, right?
Yeah,
Most good scanners, integrated software or bundle software, will do a good job of correcting color and correcting the tone of an old photo. And Mylio will do so as well. But if the photo has a lot of damage, meaning it has been creased or there's dirt or lines or other mm, um, things affecting the image, um, then you might have to go into a more sophisticated piece of software like Lightroom or Photoshop or similar software to remove some of those lines and creases and do some cleanup
yeah,
of the photo. So, but for most photos that are in good condition and are just faded because time has taken its toll, yes, the options on a good scanner and the options within Mylio will do a reasonable job of making those photos look better. And
yeah.
then the next question is location GPS or address or description only one question mark? For example, all addresses have been changed, renumbered. So I don't know if you want to demonstrate this, Angela, but there's quite a bit of variation in what you can do with the location information within Mylio. So GPS is really a GPS coordinate, and that's how that data is stored in the sidecar XMP file, or even in the embedded metadata of a file. When you take a photo with your phone, the phone is not recording an address, it's recording GPS coordinates. The software that is decoding that photo or presenting that photo can access a mapping database that then translate those GPS coordinates into an address. However, with Mylio, you do have the option of adding a specific address, adding a specific description, and you even have the option of adding an all location. Uh, so
Yep. So like JC was saying, if you're wanting to add location information, the GPS coordinate is what's going to make a picture show up in the map view. So if we go over here and just peek at the map view here in Mylio, you can see all these pins. Some of these are modern pictures, some of these are historical images. but it's because I've added location information in my metadata that I'm able to see what's going on here. And that's just dragging and dropping into the map. I don't know exactly where in Detroit this was, but I know it's Ford Village, but I don't have specific coordinates for it. But I just grabbed a sample location. I just dragged the pictures onto the map here for Detroit. And for my uses, that is close enough. Some people ask how to note that it's an approximate location. That's something you can absolutely put up here under the caption. And you can just say location approximate, whatever works for you there. If you have more detailed information, if you have the coordinates, you can go ahead and put in exact coordinates. And you can also just type in an address here. If you have an address, you can search for location and drag it onto the map, or simply type in the information that you have. So there's a lot of different ways that you can add information and make sure that that's preserved. Is there anything else that you would cover, JC?
Yeah, you got it.
All right. Any other questions? All right. So I did see a comment in the chat from Raylene. Says this is new, she's new to this. It all sounds a little intimidating. So it is a big project, but it is a very, very worthwhile one. And everything that I'm describing here is not an all or nothing proposition. Every step can be tailored to what you feel comfortable with and what you have time to do. If all you have time to do is get those images scanned and onto a hard drive, just make sure you have a good backup and you don't necessarily have to go further. But the more context you can add, spend a little time adding that information, maybe take off 10 to 15 minutes a week to add a little bit more. Every little bit helps, but we're all busy, and I know big projects do seem very intimidating. My best suggestion is take it in little baby chunks, and you're gonna have progress as you go. It's just, taking it a little bit at a time, because looking at a project like this as a whole, yes, does feel very intimidating. All right, so let's go ahead and talk a little bit about photo restoration. So you've scanned all of these pictures and you want to make sure that they look really good when you go to print them. You also want to make sure they look good on screen if you're going to share them on social media or put them into a shared album that you're going to share with friends and family. Mylio has some great tools that can help with this. And I'm just going to go ahead and pop back over here to Mylio, go back over here to my folders. And over here in the right sidebar, we have some editing tools. And from here, you can go ahead and choose one of the presets. You can change the exposure, the contrast, add a pop of color, or pull it back if it doesn't look quite right. And if the picture it has a faded tone to it, or it has maybe a magenta, like something from like the 70s and 80s, it's been sitting in a shoebox and has turned kind of red magenta, there are tools in here to help you fix that. So you'll want to go through and do a little bit of color correction and making sure it's bright enough and has enough contrast for a good print. And one thing to keep in mind when you're thinking about moving towards printing something is prints often appear darker than they do on your screens. The reason for this is screens are backlit. When you get a piece of paper with a printed image, there's no light behind it. So it's always going to seem a little bit dark. The other thing is a lot of our modern displays, unless you have it calibrated for photography, they are so, so bright. It gives us kind of a false sense of what that image looks like, especially if you're going to go to print. So if you're going to take an image to print, it's not a bad idea to brighten it up a little bit and add a little bit more contrast before you send it off to the print lab. Color correction helps ensure those true to life colors. Like I said, if you have something that has a magenta cast or is really faded, it can help ensure those true to life colors. So another thing that you might want to do is, if you're printing, is crop it. Now, this can be done for several reasons. One, to improve composition and get rid of distractions and focus in on what's most important in the picture. The other is if you're wanting to create a standard print size. So some of the standard print sizes, those are all in ratios. So you can do a 1:1, which is a square, a 2:3, which is your typical 4:6, 8:12, those types of things, 5:7, 4:5. These are all very common aspect ratios for print sizes. So when you crop to one of these aspect ratios, you'll be able to take it to a print lab and you'll be able to get edge to edge what you're expecting. If you have an image that you crop at the lab and maybe you haven't taken the time to pre-crop it, you might end up with bits missing on the edges that you weren't anticipating. So cropping it ahead of time can make sure that you have what you're expecting when you get a print. If you need to do advanced editing, JC mentioned this earlier, if you have a picture that is badly damaged and is maybe way too small to print, there are a lot of things you can do. There are some great tools out there that have AI built in and can do a lot of this for you. There are tools to help you clone and erase when you have creases and fingerprints and scratches on pictures. A lot of that can be fixed. And then there's also creative editing. You can take a picture that was color and make it black and white. There are pictures you can take that are black and white and you can colorize them. So there's a lot of different creative things you can do. And some of the apps that I love, Radiant Photo is a wonderful one, Luminar Neo, and of course, Adobe Camera Raw and Photoshop. Those are probably where I spend the most of my time for creative and visual changes. Mylio Photos makes this really easy to access because you can select any image in Mylio or multiple images, go up to the photo menu here, and you can just say open with and open whatever application that you need to open from your computer. So let's go ahead and move on here and talk about resolution for printing. We talked about it for scanning and we talked about scanning at 600 DPI. When we go into printing, we also use DPI, but it works a little bit differently and we want to have ideally 300 DPI for professional prints. Basically, that gives you a pixel by pixel representation of what you're seeing. 240 DPI still gives you a good quality. 150 is kind of the minimum, and especially if you're printing something very large. And keep in mind how close you're going to be looking at something. So if you're making a small print, let's say a 4x6, you probably want to have that at least a 240 or a 300 DPI because you're going to be looking at that between 8 to 12 inches from your face. When you are talking about something really large, let's say like a 4x6, 4 foot by 6 foot print, something very, very big, you can go down in resolution because when you're looking at that, you're actually going to be standing back 4 to 6 feet from that particular image. You're not going to be up on it. You will see, if you're looking at it very closely, you will see that the resolution is a little bit more degraded, but it's okay if you're standing back and taking it in as a whole. So that's how resolutions work. Let me give you some examples here. So when you're resizing your photos for some of these common sizes and resolutions, a 4x6 image ideally would be a 1200 by 800 pixel. And in Mylio, you can go here into the info panel and take a look at your information about your picture and see what you have. So this image here is 2041 by 2060, and that would easily give me an 8x10 print at a 300 DPI. I could go a little bit lower or go a little bit bigger, and that's going to decrease the quality of it, but not so much that the human eye can see. However, if I were to go print it very, very big, that's where you'd have to make sure you're standing back and looking at it from a distance. Otherwise, if you're up looking at it close, you're going to see that degradation. So keep in mind the pixel size of your image when you're going to print. It's going to give you a better idea of the quality of that print. Also, you don't necessarily have to do all of this math every time. Most professional print labs, including Printique, when you upload an image, it will give you a scale and tell you if this picture has enough resolution for quality print. One thing I like about Printique is it will say kind of a good, better, best. And so you can see what's recommended. And if you take it too far, it'll be like, this picture is really not recommended for this size because there's just not enough data there. So I'm giving you kind of the details and the why behind it, but you don't have to necessarily know this off the top of your head. A lot of the labs will tell you if you upload something that's too small. So as I mentioned, 300 DPI is best, but it's not required. You want to consider that viewing distance. If you're stepping farther away from the image and looking at something large, you don't need to have as high of a resolution. But if you really do need more pixels, there is software out there that can help. I use one called Topaz Photo AI, and I was able to take this picture. So I have the original here was 800 by 1100, and I was able to upscale that to 2912 by 417. So that's going to give me a much better quality print and much more resolution, so I can print this much larger. So if you have something small and you need to make it bigger, there are tools for that. Topaz Photo AI is my favorite, but Luminar Neo has an upscale in it. On One has an upscale. You can upscale in Photoshop. There's tons of different applications out there that can help with this. Different ones have different things they do better. Some of them work a little bit better than others, but they all do a respectable job. And as far as getting something that's a decent print, they will all be helpful. All right, so when you're working with the print lab, Mylio Photos does have an integration with Printique, but you can use any lab that you like. It's just super easy to use the Printique integration because it sends it directly to the print lab for you. But other print labs can work. All you need to do is export your pictures at the high quality, and we have some presets in there for printing at high quality or standard quality. Make sure you're using that JPEG or TIFF. Check with your print lab as to what they prefer. Use the maximum quality setting, and typically they're going to ask for an sRGB. So let me show you that real quick. Let's say I want to take this image and I want to export this out to a print lab that's not Printique. I can go here to my share menu and click export. And if I click here in the presets, I can go ahead and scroll down and I have there my printing high quality and standard quality. So if I click high quality, that's giving me a TIFF file. It's giving me the original dimensions, maximum quality, and it is choosing the Adobe RGB space. Again, check with your print lab. I might change this to sRGB. And metadata, when you're going to go print it, not quite so important, so you can go ahead and leave that alone. And unless you want to watermark it, go ahead and leave that off. I typically do when I print. From there, you go ahead and click export. It's going to ask you where you want to save it on your hard drive. I keep a temporary exports folder on my desktop. Pop it in there, and then you can go to whatever website you want and upload that file to whatever print lab you want to use. If you want to do this through Printique, it is so easy. So Printique is a pro-grade printing service. They specialize in photo books, wall art, calendars, so much. Like there's so many options on their website. And it's very user-friendly with the Mylio Photos seamless integration. So what you're going to do is select your pictures, go to the share icon in the right sidebar, and choose Post Printique. Let's go ahead and do that together right now. So I want to take this picture and I want to print it large. I'm going to go here to my share icon and I'm going to go here to Post. There's Printique, and that's going to go ahead and ask me to log in. Once I do that, it's going to give me the option to add a caption and choose a folder on Printique where I want to put that image and give it about, 30 to 60 seconds. Then I can go over to the Printique website. All of the pictures that I've uploaded will be there. I'm not going to go ahead and sign in right now because I'm already signed in on the website. And then we will go ahead and take a look at picking some pictures there here in just a moment. So the next step is once you send your pictures over to Printique, what do you want to make? It really depends on what you want to accomplish, what tangible thing you want to be able to hang on your wall, have sitting on your coffee table, be able to send to friends and family. It's really, there's so many different options here. For myself, I like to do wall art. I've taken some historical photos of my own and I've blown them up big, and I've done these acrylic prints, and they're gorgeous. I have them up on the wall in my living room. I took some old art photos that my great-grandfather captured, and I did some restoration on them and I put them up in my house. Actually, let me show you that really quick because it's kind of cool to see. I'm going to go here to my albums in Mylio. I think I've got these in here. And go back up a level. And there we go, large print restoration. So I took these pictures. I used my camera, my mirrorless Canon camera, put it on a tripod and shot straight down. And you can see my lighting wasn't great, but it was good enough. And because I was on a tripod, I could do a slightly longer exposure. You can see there's quite a lot of damage on this image. And I took this into Photoshop and I cleaned up a lot of that damage and came up with these. So let's see here. Where's that particular one? This one. So this was my restoration. I did maintain the grain. I could go through and I could get rid of some of that grain, but I didn't. I just made it into a straight black and white, added a little bit of warmth to it. And this is what I sent off to the print lab. And when I got them, this is before I hung them on the wall. They look absolutely amazing. And again, that's those acrylic prints, or the prints with acrylic overlay. And then just to give you an idea of what that looks like, there they are up on the wall in my living room. And they look so beautiful. So this is a really tangible reminder of your own family history and what came before you. And for me, as a photographer, knowing that photography is in my family history is very powerful. So this was a project that meant a lot to me, and I liked being able to digitize these and then reprint them so they are preserved. And again, having them front and center in my living room is a daily reminder of what came before. So when you're choosing what to make, what you want to do with it makes a big difference. I think photo books and wall art are probably going to be the most common for everybody. But let's go ahead and jump over here to the Printique website and take a look around. They have many different photo book options. So if you're wanting to put together an album to maybe redo that falling apart album that you were handed, you can go ahead and build that back out. Again, where I made the tip of photographing the pages of an album before you take it apart, that can actually help you redo a modern version of that if that's something that you want to do. I usually hang out over here in the photo prints or in the wall decor. And like I said, the acrylic prints here are what I did for my living room, but it depends on your decor, your budget, what you want to do, and the size that you want to do. So lots of options to choose different things. Once you've uploaded stuff from Mylio, you
Hey,
can just go over.
Angela.
Yep.
Sorry, I just want to mention there's some really fun stuff under the gift section, including making a puzzle or coasters, which I have used personally, and they're like super fun and people really appreciate them.
I happen to have some of JC's coasters right here. So yeah, they're very cool. So some very, very neat stuff. And that's a great way to share with extended family as well. All right, so I'm going to go over here to my name here. I'm already logged in on the website, and I'm going to go here to my photo galleries. And we'll see some of the pictures that I've uploaded over time for different things. I've got a bunch of different projects that I've worked on, and all of these I've sent using that process that I showed you in Mylio. So very seamless. You don't have to worry about crazy settings. Mylio takes care of all of that for you when you're using this integration. So you can take these pictures and then make whatever you like. So if I wanted to go ahead and say I want to make some photo prints or wall decor, let's go ahead and do a canvas print. And I want something big. I can go here and go bigger. And let's say I want to do a 20 by 30 and create now. What's going to happen is it's going to ask me some options. I like to do a mirrored edge when I do a canvas. And I think the luster is nice. Glossy is good too, but it's whatever you prefer. So go ahead and say select photos. And that pulls me into these galleries where Mylio's uploaded all of my pictures. I can then go into, let's see here. You just go into this 4 years in Sicily and let's grab a couple of pictures. I want to choose this one and let's review that product. It's going to go ahead and put that together for me, give me a preview of what that looks like. And again, here's my quality slider. For this particular image at a 20 by 30, it's saying it's only fair. So you know what? I might want to go back and make this a little bit smaller. So I'm not going to have as good a quality taking this up to a 20 by 30. It's going to probably be decent, good, excellent if I go down to like a 16 by 20 or, even a 12 by 18 or something like that. So those are things that you want to take into consideration. The other thing is this color correction option. If you are not big into photo editing and you haven't done a lot of color correction on your own, I do recommend checking that box. It's going to give a little bit of extra color and contrast to that image, basically just make it look its best. However, if you are a professional photographer, you've put in a lot of effort into making your picture look exactly the way you want, make sure that's turned off. So it's not a bad thing to have on unless you have taken a lot of precise work to tone and color and everything else and using a calibrated monitor. So those are just some things to consider. Once you have this set up, you can go ahead and click save and then add this to your cart and you can go ahead and move forward and purchase that. Printique will ship to the USA and Canada. There are other photo labs all around the world. So if you are not located in one of those locations, using that other export method that I talked about is probably going to be your best choice. But if you are in the USA and Canada, using Printique is super, super easy. So you can create all sorts of unique and fun keepsakes. Make sure you take a look at your Printique galleries inside of the web page, and then customize and place your order. Excuse me. So just some key takeaways to think about as we wrap things up for today. Encourage you to scan with care. Make sure you avoid low resolution scans. Scan at that 600 DPI when possible. And organize with intention. Add that context, add those stories, add those bits of details that are going to make this important and necessary for the next generation. When you're editing, especially if you're planning to print, keep print in mind as you're making your adjustments. Make sure you bring up the brightness and the contrast a little bit and take a look at the color so you're not disappointed, and make sure those colors match what you want when you get the finished print. When you're sending things off to the print lab, mind your resolution. Make sure you have enough detail and size for the size that you want to print. If you're using something like Printique where they tell you you can upload it, you can see whether you have enough or not, that little slider that I showed you, or take a look at those settings in the metadata of your picture. If I go back over here to Mylio, that's this area right up here, and it's telling me exactly what my dimensions are that I have for this picture. That's going to give you a good idea of how big you can print. Use the right settings for your export. If you're not using the Printique integration, make sure you're using those presets for high quality or standard printing, depending on the type of lab you're using and how big you want to go. And if you're in the USA or Canada, we do highly encourage you to use Printique. It makes it so easy, and every piece of media that I've gotten back from them has been excellent quality. And anything that has had a small defect to it, if you let them know, they are right on top of it. Like if something happens to the shipping, they've just been so good. So highly recommend them. I have personally used them. I think everyone on this call, as far as all of our panelists, I think they have as well. It's good stuff. So with that, let's go ahead and start to wrap up. I do want to let you know that if you are new here, you probably don't know, we have some other live events that we do every single week. If you go to community.mylio.com/events, every Tuesday and Thursday we have live Q&As. These are informal sessions where you can drop in, come and ask questions. I host those sessions, and you can ask me anything about Mylio, printing, photo editing, photography, anything. We cover all sorts of stuff at these sessions, and they're a lot of fun. And like I said, very informal. Just come drop in and say hi. On Fridays, we have special presentations called coffee breaks, and these are typically short tutorials followed up by more time for questions. Again, pretty informal setting, and they are, short and sweet. This month for September, we're covering a lot of using Mylio Photos on your mobile phone and some of the tips and tricks to make sure that that goes smoothly, because the user experience is a little bit different than using it on the computer. So if you're interested, please drop by and into those events. I would love to see you. And I think now it's time for our last giveaway.
Okay, this last name is a lot easier. So David Starr, congratulations. Please send me your email address and we'll get that Printique print card off to you. Thank you so much.
Congratulations. All right. And then just to give you a reminder here, we do have some offers for you. If you are new to Mylio Photos and would like to check it out, you can enter new Mylio 20 at mylio.com for checkout on individual and family plans. That's good through October 1st. If you are interested in ordering from Printique and you are not one of our lucky winners today, you can still save 20% off your purchase. Use Mylio 20 at checkout, and that is good through September 30th. With that, I'd like to go ahead and open the floor for questions. So, Lori, JC, what else we got?
Well, JC has been doing a great job answering a lot in the Q&A, so he's pretty quick.
All
Let's
right
see
then.
here.
We answer every question there ever was.
Wow, I'm impressed.
Yeah,
Ever.
yeah. We solve all the mysteries of the universe.
Yay. I'm so glad. That makes my life so much simpler.
Great questions. There were a lot of good questions.
Awesome. Anything that we should go over together, or just...
Actually, yeah, there were a few people that had questions about what happens if you stop paying for Mylio, or how the Mylio product itself works. So I'll share that with everyone.
Great.
So Mylio Photos Plus is a subscription-based product, right? There's two parts to Mylio. There's the software, the little app that runs on your phone or your computer, and then there's the service, which is what we have servers for. And the service helps your devices find each other. It helps things to happen automatically, like photos that you take with your phone to automatically synchronize to your computer or to your external hard drives or any other devices that you set to be backups of your media. So many of those features do require the paid subscription. But what happens to your photos if you stop paying for your subscription is absolutely nothing. Your photos are always in your devices, they're always available. They are saved directly to the file system of your computer or your external hard drives. And the metadata changes that you make to your photos, any dates, corrections, any information that you've added to your photos are stored to XMP sidecar files that reside right next to the photo in the file system. So you can completely stop using Mylio, and a lot of the work that you've done is preserved. We believe that you'll find so much value and that you'll like the product so much that you'll want to keep using it and you'll want to keep paying and you'll want to help us maintain this product as a viable option to all of us. But there is no gotchas. Our goal is to help you organize and find your photos and to have them available in every device that you have, not to trap you into taking your data. Your data is always yours and you always have full control of it.
Excellent point. All right. Well, if there is nothing else, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up. I want to thank you guys all for being here and for joining me today. This has been a fun topic to present. I hope it was valuable to you and that you learned a little something. I know there was a lot of information covered, so kind of like drinking from a fire hose. This was meant to give you an idea of what's possible. If you have specific questions, please feel free to jump into one of my Q&As on Tuesdays or Thursdays, or reach out to me in the Mylio community. I'm happy to answer any follow-up questions and give you more details on anything else that you might want to learn a little bit more in depth. With that, I want to wish you guys a wonderful rest of your day. And also a big thank you to Lori and JC for helping out with the chat, making sure everybody's questions got answered. It'd be hard to manage a group of this size and keep everybody on track without their help. So I'm very grateful. Thank you again to everybody who came and hope to see you again. Bye, everybody.